It's that time of year. Christmas is upon us yet again. And the Christmas story is perhaps one of the most beloved narratives of all time. But it is something that is often colored by tradition, by our culture. Over the centuries, the story has kind of evolved into something that's nice and charming, but often deviates from the biblical account. So here we're going to be taking a look at common misconceptions around the Christmas story. Which elements are completely false? Which have been sanitized to fit our comfortable narrative? And what does the Bible have to say? Let's take a look.
Attention, bargain shoppers.
All right, misconception number 1. There were 3 wise men. Now, the imagery of the 3 wise men bearing gifts is kind of a cornerstone of the Christmas story. I mean, we know they brought gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So you got 3 things. Makes sense to have 3 people each holding 1 thing. And then we also got the song, "We 3 Kings of Orient Are," but they weren't actually kings. The title kings was later added onto the story in the 6th century, likely to give it more historical weight, gravitas. And there likely weren't 3 of them. The Bible never specifically says the number of magi. It simply refers to them in the plural. And they were likely either Persian or Babylonian astronomers. Which brings us to misconception number 2. The shepherds and the magi likely didn't visit Jesus at the same time. And I get it. You've got the nativity set and it shows everybody huddled around nicely on Christmas Eve. And this is a nice, simple, clean setup. However, the biblical text strongly suggests that they visited at different times, actually separated by probably a significant amount of time. If we look at Luke 2, 8 and 16, "And there were shepherds living out in the fields nearby, keeping watch over their flocks at night. So they hurried off and found Mary and Joseph and the baby who was lying in the manger." So Luke places the shepherds visiting immediately on Jesus' birth. They were in the fields and they came with haste, and they saw the baby lying in a manger. But with the Magi, Matthew suggests a much later arrival. When the Magi arrive, they find Jesus not in a manger but in a house. We're told in Matthew 2:11, "On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh." And then we see further evidence of this in Matthew 2:16. "When Herod realized that he had been outwitted by the Magi, he was furious, and he gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity who were 2 years old and under, in accordance with the time he had learned from the Magi." So this strongly indicates that the Magi's visit occurred anywhere from several months to up to 2 years after Jesus' birth. And another misconception that we have about Jesus' birth is that he was born into this cozy wooden stable. We see the nativity scene, that always looks so nice. Jesus is laid in a manger that's perfectly fitted for his little baby body. And as we see in Luke 2:7, "And she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in clothes and placed him in a manger because there is no guest room available for them." And a lot of older translations use the word inn. There is no place for them at the inn. But more recent translations say guest room. And this is actually more accurate. See, when we hear something like there's no room at the inn, we kind of picture like no vacancies at a Motel 6. But archaeological and historical evidence suggests that 1st century homes in Bethlehem were typically single room dwellings. So you'd have like a raised up room for the main family, and a lot of times you'd have a guest room off to the side. And then in the lower section, kind of like the basement area, this would be where you'd house your animals below the house. So the Bible is basically saying that they came to this house, this room, and there's a family there, and there was another family already occupying the guest room. So they stayed in the lower area down where the animals were. And the manger, the Hebrew word being fatneh, was not like a freestanding trough, like a wooden basket as we picture. It was more like a cutout square in the floor that they dumped the animal food into. So there's that. And then another misconception, and this one actually blew my mind. The misconception is that Mary rode on a donkey to Bethlehem when she was heavily pregnant. I mean, this is classic Christmas card imagery. Mary sitting on a donkey, riding it to Bethlehem, about to give birth. But there's actually no mention of her riding a donkey in the Bible. We see in Luke 2, 4 through 5. And because Joseph was a descendant of King David, he had to go to Bethlehem in Judea, David's ancient home. He traveled there from the village of Nazareth in Galilee. He took with him Mary, to whom he was engaged, and who was now expecting a child. The text does not say the mode of transportation that they took to get there. And you're looking at a journey of approximately 80 to 90 miles. And for a family that was relatively poor, you're going to be walking that distance. I mean, a donkey is nice if you can afford it, but that's likely an asset that the family didn't have access to, which I think is even crazier. Like, it's one thing to ride a donkey when you're pregnant for 80 or 90 miles, but it's even more intense to think that she probably walked that distance while 9 months pregnant. It's certainly nicer to think about her having access to a donkey, cozier, a more sanitized image. But to me, it just shows that her obedience to God, the struggle she went through, was that much more of a sacrificial one. But what do you think? Do you have any misconceptions that I left out? Do you disagree with anything I said? I'd love to hear your comments below. It helps out the channel. Also, feel free to like and subscribe. That helps out as well. I'll leave the verses used today in the description. My name is Adam. This is Bargain Bin Theology. And remember, you get what you pay for.